My name is Linda, and my life changed the day I decided to trust a sympathetic sob story. I owned a small apartment building near the university, and when John showed up, clean-cut, nervous, claiming to be a struggling engineering student, I felt a pang of maternal empathy. He charmed me with talk of late-night study sessions and his difficult family situation back home. I offered him the top-floor studio, taking a reduced deposit and trusting his promise to pay the full rent by the end of the month. The first month came and went, and the rent didn't arrive. John was elusive, always managing to miss my calls or send vague, apologetic texts referencing exam stress or a delayed scholarship. I grew frustrated, but I was still lenient. I saw him as a kid trying to catch a break, not a deadbeat, but by the middle of the second month the excuses wore thin. I confronted him outside his apartment, demanding payment. John's charm vanished instantly. His eyes went cold, and his demeanour shifted from anxious student to calculating aggressor. He refused point blank, muttering something about the heating being inadequate and threatening me with a housing violation suit if I pushed the issue. I left the encounter feeling defeated and furious. The next morning, the problem escalated from financial dispute to blatant theft. I woke up, looked out the window, and saw the empty space where my classic, fully restored 1970s Mustang convertible usually sat. It was gone. Panic turned to icy fury. I immediately called the police, filed the report, and then, my suspicions already focused, I went straight to John's apartment. His unit was empty. Not just empty of a tenant, but clinically, totally gutted. The only items left were a stained mattress and a stack of textbooks, all of them clean, dust-free, and clearly never opened. That's when the chilling realization hit me. John wasn't a student. The entire identity was a meticulously crafted lie, used to gain access to quiet buildings and assess the assets of the landlords. The initial police investigation was, predictably, a dead end. They filed the report under standard car theft and skip rental. The detective assigned to the case told me I was likely dealing with a sophisticated team, and that the Mustang was probably already stripped for parts miles away. But I knew better. I knew John was still out there, and I knew his theft was personal, a calculated punishment for demanding my rent. I wasn't just a landlord. My background was in cybersecurity. I had spent a decade building firewalls and tracing digital footprints for corporate clients. I had the skills, and now I had the motive. My Mustang was my baby, and John had just made the mistake of stealing from a woman whose expertise lay in catching digital ghosts. The game had just changed. My deep dive began. I started with John's initial rental application, cross-referencing his references against public records. They led nowhere, pointing to disposable phone numbers and abandoned email accounts. But one specific piece of metadata, a tiny IP fragment from his initial application submission, gave me a direction. An encrypted forum known for facilitating grey market vehicle sales. I spent the next 2 weeks using every ounce of my expertise to gain access to that forum, operating in the darkest corners of the web. I traced the activity of a username matching John's sophisticated, aggressive digital signature, documenting his conversations. The horrifying truth emerged. John was a professional thief. He specialised in classic cars, moving them via complex networks to shady overseas buyers, often using temporary rentals as his base of operations to case the neighbourhood. The rent refusal wasn't personal. It was his exit strategy. I had the evidence, the transcripts, the transaction details, the proof of his true identity, a name that was not John. But the local police were slow, bound by bureaucracy, and terrified of warrants based on forum data. They needed something concrete, something undeniable, and they needed it fast, before John finished his current sale. This led to the terrifying, pivotal moment of the twist. I realised the only way to catch John before he vanished was to use my unique skills to force the issue. I couldn't trust the official channels to move at the speed required. I focused on the police's own dated, vulnerable internal system. I initiated a highly surgical, ethical hack. I found a secure entry point into the precinct's ancient, poorly maintained email server and injected a genuine but slightly modified official BOLO, be on the lookout bulletin. I made it look like a high-priority urgent alert for John's car and true identity, complete with the digital evidence I had meticulously gathered. The confrontation didn't happen in an alley. It happened across the city, driven by my digital command. Within the hour, the BOLO alert, complete with John's real name and the specifics of the grey market sale he was about to finalise, was being broadcast across all patrol cars and checkpoints. The operation was swift. John was intercepted 50 miles away, attempting to finalise the sale of my Mustang in a remote industrial lot. The police didn't know the BOLO was fraudulent. They only saw the high-priority alert and the immediate opportunity for a major bust. John was arrested and charged not just with car theft, but with felony fraud and operating a major theft ring, based on the mountain of digital evidence I had inserted into the official report. I emerged not as a victim, but as the unlikely hero who had broken a major crime ring using a laptop. The story ends not with a simple conviction, but with a clear statement on justice. I recovered my Mustang, dented but fixable, and the police, after a tense internal investigation, ultimately decided to turn a blind eye to my technical assistance, given the magnitude of the bust. I got my car back, I got my justice, and I got my rent back tenfold in legal compensation. The lesson learned? Never ever skip rent on the landlord who writes the code.